Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a subject that, let's be honest, it's uncomfortable. It's challenging.
Definitely. It's raw, even. But it's incredibly important, something we really can't afford to ignore.
Absolutely. Because ignoring it means ignoring something fundamental about, well, human dignity.
And it's striking, isn't it, how certain legal ideas can get so embedded, especially when they seem to clash so much with how we think today about consent, about autonomy.
Right. It's not just legalese. It gets into the very fabric of society.
Exactly.
And here's the central point, the really quite shocking fact. We need to get straight from the beginning. In India, marital rape, so a husband forcing himself on his wife, is not currently a crime in the eyes of the law.
That is, provided the wife is 18 or older, that specific condition is key.
Which just immediately makes you ask,
Yeah.
why? Why does this legal exception still exist?
And what does it actually do? What's a real impact on the lives of, well, millions of women? That's really our mission for this deep dive, exploring that why and unpacking the impact.
To make this less abstract, let's talk about a specific person. We'll call her Anjali. She's 27, educated, seems quite calm. Someone you might meet anywhere.
And one evening, she's tired. It's been a long day. She just says, quite simply, I'm tired tonight, let's talk tomorrow. Setting a boundary.
A very clear, simple request, right?
But her husband just disregarded it completely. And for Anjali, this wasn't just, a disagreement. It felt like a violation, a deep one.
So the next day, she finds the courage. And imagine how much courage that takes. She calls the police. She's looking for help, for protection.
And the response she gets, it's just crushing.
He is your husband. How can a complaint be filed?
Just like that. Think about hearing those words when you're reaching out for help.
It's devastating. And this story, sadly, it's not unique. It shows exactly what this legal loophole means in the real world.
So let's connect that back to the actual law. We're talking about Section 375 of the Indian Penal Code.
Okay. And what does that section generally say?
Well, generally it defines rape pretty clearly. Forced intercourse without consent. That's the standard for most situations.
Seems straightforward enough.
But then comes this exception woven right into the law.
The exception being?
If a husband forces his wife and she's 18 or over, it's specifically not considered rape under this section.
And this isn't some new addition, is it? Where does this come from?
No, not at all. It's old. It dates back to the British colonial era, actually. We're talking before 1860.
Wow. Before 1860. And it's still the law today.
It is, despite, numerous court cases, petitions, lots of challenges over the years trying to get it changed. But no new law has actually been enacted to remove that exception.
That persistence is something. It speaks volumes, doesn't it? About societal views, maybe? Patriarchy, legal inertia.
All of that, I think. It reflects these older ideas about marriage, about a wife's role, her autonomy or lack thereof. And legal reform, especially in areas like this, it's often slow, very contentious, even when it clashes with modern human rights ideas.
So you have these intense legal debates happening.
Exactly. Challenging it based on equality, dignity, the Constitution, pitting these sort of archaic notions of conjugal rights against a woman's fundamental right to her own body, even within marriage.
So let's bring it back to the woman living under this law. What are the actual consequences for her? What does no legal recourse look like day to day?
Well, the sources we looked at paint a pretty grim picture. They talk about situations of, quote, torture every night, with no official way to stop it or seek protection.
Torture every night.
Yeah.
And no help available.
Essentially, yes. Think about it. No dedicated medical care for this specific type of violence within the marriage context, legally speaking. No real legal support to go after the person responsible.
And the mental trauma.
It's immeasurable, often leading to deep, long-lasting psychological scars. Because, this isn't just about sex. It's really a profound abuse of power, of control, in a relationship that's supposed to be built on respect.
And our sources pointed to something that acts like a shield for this injustice.
Yes, silence. The silence around it is just pervasive. It's the biggest weapon, really, working against these women.
So breaking that silence is key. But there are also these myths, these common arguments that come up whenever change is discussed.
Oh, definitely. These are huge hurdles. They come up again and again in our research, constantly blocking progress. We should probably tackle a few of those directly.
Yeah, let's do that. Debunk them. What's the first one we often hear? Something like, "Chaatsi kabat consent ki kya zarurat?" Or, in English, what's the need for consent after marriage?
Right. This idea that marriage somehow equals permanent consent.
Which is just fundamentally wrong, isn't it?
Completely. The truth is, consent is absolutely necessary every single time, no exceptions. Marriage isn't a license for sex. It's not a contract that signs away your bodily autonomy.
It's not a lifetime consent form.
Exactly. Every interaction needs clear, enthusiastic consent, period.
Okay, so what's the next myth? The one about misuse. A's to misuse hagalaka. The law will be misused.
Ah, yes. The fear of false accusations. It's a common pushback against almost any law designed to protect victims, especially women.
So how do we counter that?
Well, the reality is, unfortunately, any law can potentially be misused. That's true. But does that possibility mean we shouldn't provide protection for genuine victims?
Of course not. That logic doesn't hold up.
It doesn't. The potential for misuse cannot and should not outweigh the fundamental right of victims to safety, justice, and legal recourse. It raises that tricky balance, protecting rights versus fear of abuse. But denying protection isn't the answer.
It really highlights how defensive some reactions can be. Okay, one more big one. The cultural argument. Yeah, how may the culture get getse? This is against our culture.
That's a powerful one because culture is so deeply felt. But the truth is, culture should uphold dignity, right?
Ideally, yes.
If a cultural practice or interpretation of it harms someone, if it violates their basic human dignity or rights, then that practice needs to be questioned. It needs reevaluation.
Culture shouldn't be a shield for causing harm.
Precisely. It should be a source of strength, identity, connection, not a justification for eroding fundamental rights.
Okay, so we've unpacked the law, the impact, the myths. It feels heavy. It feels huge. What can we actually do? What can listeners do?
It does feel immense, but there are definitely things. And the very first step, as our sources kept emphasizing, is simply talking about it.
Breaking that silence we mentioned earlier.
Exactly. That's paramount. Just having these conversations, raising awareness.
And beyond talking, are there more concrete actions?
Yes. You can look into signing petitions that advocate for legal change. You can share information, spread awareness in your own communities, online, offline.
Support organizations working on the ground.
Definitely. Support women's helplines like 1091 in India or other NGOs that provide direct support, counseling, and legal aid to survivors. They do critical work.
And what if you know someone you suspect might be going through this, or who confides in you?
That's a really important point. If someone trusts you enough to share something like this, the most crucial thing is to be a supportive listener, not a judge.
Absolutely not a judge. Just listen. Believe them. Offer a safe space without judgment. Let them know they're not alone. It's about empathy, validation.
Just being there.
Being there. That can make a world of difference.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we wanted to leave you, the listener, with something to really think about. A question that emerged quite powerfully from the material.
It's a provocative question, really.
Right.
It forces us to confront the core issue. Will a woman's no, her refusal, only be considered valid, only be legally respected?
Until her forehead isn't filled with vermilion. Until she's married.
That question just lays bare the legal distinction based purely on marital status.
Yeah.
It challenges us all, doesn't it, to think about what dignity and autonomy truly mean. For everyone.
So we really urge you, think about this, ask questions, don't shy away from the conversation.
And raise your voice in whatever way you can.
This deep dive, it's for those who feel silenced.
And now really is the time to speak.